YouTube, what's happening? It's Friday, June 7th. There are 14 games to talk about in baseball today. Drop a like, subscribe if you haven't, and let me know in the comments how you're doing following my plays because I'm doing good. 11-4 yesterday, 8.3 units back in the bankroll, 17 units this week, almost 50 units for the month. These numbers are wild. The model is killing it. It is crushing it. It is en fuego. We have 14 more games to talk about. Let's go ahead and jump into that first one. First game, we got the Twins and the Pirates. We got Ryan with a 3.38 up against Keller with a 3.42. Betting markets show us that the Twins are a slight favorite on the road. 8.5 the total. A little bit of juice on that under. Popping over here to the data, we see that Nerfy 60.4, not what we're talking about. Advantage Pittsburgh in scoring. Pittsburgh's bat's been hot, 6 runs a game for 5th most in the past 3 games, 3.7 runs for Minnesota. You can see the trend line favors Pittsburgh. Batting averages 262 for Pitt, 188 for Minnesota. Minnesota is continually struggling when it comes to batting average over the past 3 days, 7 days, 2 weeks, even longer than that. They've been struggling. So we got advantage Pittsburgh. Strikeouts, Pittsburgh still swinging at everything. Last in the majors, 11.7 the last 3 games, 10.5 the last week, 10.3 the last 2 weeks. They are not disciplined. They swing at everything. So a slight advantage Minnesota. The trend line for Pittsburgh is off the screen for strikeouts. I mean, come on. It's terrible. So we're going to look at Joe Ryan's strikeout props right now. So we have Ryan here, 3.38 with a 1-on-1 with 77 Ks for 18th. We're going to look at his strikeout prop because he did get roughed up against Houston in his last game. You can see he gave up 5 runs, 8 hits, only 4 Ks. But before that, 9, 6, 5, 7. The dude can get it done. He had great games here. New York got him a little bit, but outside of that, pretty good games here. Pittsburgh is scoring. They are batting much better than Minnesota, but the strikeouts are there. So we're definitely going to play the prop here. We're going to look at his counterpart. Keller, decent game, decent game, decent game, decent game. Dude's good. He hasn't had a bad game in over last 5 games. All these games are decent games here. So I don't get why Minnesota's favored. This is one of those why it just doesn't make sense to me. Because as you can clearly see, the data lines up all for Pittsburgh. And what we do around here, we go based on data. Pittsburgh has the runs. Pittsburgh has the batting average. Pittsburgh has the pitching. Slight advantage in pitching. Just because Ryan had his last game was roughed up. But we're still going to take Ryan K's because I think he can still get the K's done. So we're going to take Pittsburgh money line in this one at that plus 100. If you want to be safe, take plus 1.5. You can do that as well, either or. But I'm going to do plus 100 because the numbers. I am going to rock with the Joe Ryan K prop because I believe if he can strike out 9 Kansas City Chiefs, he can strike out however many 5, 6 Pirates. I think he can do that. So we'll check that number out and go with that. If it's a good number, if it's not, we're not going to play it. So we got to see what it does. But outside of that, no total in this one, no Nerfy, just Pittsburgh money line, Ryan K prop. Next game. Next up, we got Milwaukee and Detroit. We got Olsen with a 2.48, and we don't know who's pitching for Milwaukee. They have not announced anything. I can't find it anywhere. And on top of that, to make things worse, there's not even a line for this one out yet for some reason. It is Friday morning. Where are the odds? I need these. On top of that, my whole model, I use a Google sheet for everything. It's a bunch of formulas. It pulls data from like 6 different websites. And when there's no line, I can't even pull data. So I have no data to show. There's no line. So this game is going to be a complete pass. Move on to the next one. Next up, we got Atlanta and Washington. We got Sale with a 3.06 and Irving with a 3.39. Betting markets have the Braves minus 210, 7.5 the total with some juice on that over. Looking at the data, Nerfy is sitting at 76.6. We hit the Nerfy yesterday in this game. It was beautiful. It wasn't even close to worry about that one. 86% of the time, Atlanta hits the Nerfy on the road. Washington, 88.8% of the time at home. That's crazy. I'm factoring on top of that, Washington is only getting 2 runs a game. We're 27th in the past 3 games. Atlanta only 4.3, which is 14th. But Atlanta's only batting 167. Washington's only batting 204. So based on these numbers alone and the fact that at the pitching matchups, we have Chris Sale, who got absolutely worked by the A's in the last game. 9 hits, 8 runs, 4 strikeouts. Outside of that, he was a beast before he played Oakland, and Oakland just got him. And then on top of that, we got Irvin, who dude's got good numbers too. So we are 100% taking the Nerfy in this game because the data just lines up. Everything is telling us nerfy here, so we're taking that for sure. Outside of that, looking at the stats, Chris Sale's pitching, sure. But outside of that, he had a terrible game last game, obviously, and he had great games before that. Irvin's not bad. I mean, outside of his Philly game, 2-0-2. Dude, these are decent numbers. These are good. This doesn't tell me why it should be minus 210. I think we're getting minus 210 because it's Friday and the name on the chest. That's it. It's the only things I'm saying. Because if you look at the data, the Braves have better runs, but they're batting 167. They're terrible. Washington's batting 204. We have two pretty good pitchers. We have terrible offenses right now. Looking at the over under 7.5. I don't like to take 7.5. I hate it when it takes under, but we're going to leave it alone. We're not going to take the 7.5. We're not even going to take a side. I don't trust Atlanta in anything. I said it last week. Look at the stats. Atlanta should not be favored this much by anybody right now. So we're going to take the nerfy in this one and nothing else. Next game. Next up, we got Baltimore and Tampa. We got Irvin with a 2.84 and Savali with a 5.37. Betting sides have Baltimore slight favorite, 7.5 with some juice on that over. Data 68.8% nerfy. It's a Baltimore road nerfy, I know. Baltimore nerfies hit the last 4 games in a row. I know it's wild to hit that many nerfies, but look at the away nerfy for Baltimore. Baltimore's at 96.43% of their games this year. They cannot score in the first inning. It's crazy. Tampa hits at 71.4 when they're at home. That's not high enough. I'm going to pass on the nerfy today. Even though it's Baltimore, I know. I'm going to pass on it. And on top of that, look at their offenses. Baltimore is 5.7 runs a game for 8th. Tampa is 6 for 5th. Tampa's batting 306. They're 214 average for Baltimore's. They've fallen off a little bit, but outside of that, the offenses are hot. Neither one's striking out that much, 7.7. Pitching matchups here, we have Irvin going out for Baltimore. Last one was against Tampa Bay. 8 hits. 8 hits isn't not good, but he only gave up 2. Outside of that, great against Boston, little tagged against St. Louis. And Aaron over here, last game was against Baltimore as well. 6 hits, only 1 earned run. When pitchers face batters a second time, the batters always have an advantage, especially when it's only been a week. So we should do better with the bats on both sides here. So with that being said, and the line only being 7.5, and both teams offensively popping off, we're taking the over 7.5. We're going to take it with the minus 125. Try to get better number, obviously. We'll take that for sure. I can't pick a side in this one. The numbers are too close on both of them. Only thing different is Baltimore's batting average, but the pitching matchups are pretty close. Everything else is too close. So we're going to take the over 7.5, root for a bunch of runs, and move on to the next game. Next up, probably the series of the weekend. We got the Dodgers and the Yankees. We got Yamamoto with a 3.32 against Poteet with a 2.46. Betting wise, Dodgers slight favorite, 8.5 with some juice on that over. Data 36.2% nerfy. Nope, not talking about that. We're close to a Yerfy range in this one. So, but that is going to be slightly affected if Soto's playing or not. That's going to be a big thing we need to see there. Offensively, Dodgers 5.7 runs a game for 8th best. Yankees 7.3 for 4th best in the past 3. So both offenses are popping off. Yankees 247 average, Dodgers 275 advantage Dodgers. Strikeouts 10 versus 8, not too much of a difference, but Dodgers are in the bottom 3 in the majors in the last 3 games. Looking at the pitching, Yamamoto is last game pretty good. A trend I noticed here is his last 2 games where he got kind of wrecked a little bit were both on the road, and now he's on the road again. He does decent at home, but the last 2 on the road have not been good. Same for Poteet. He's only pitched 2 games, period, and both of them were on the road. So now Poteet's making his Yankees debut at home. So it's curious to see how he's going to do at home. 5 and 6 innings on the road. Decent games for road games. I mean, nothing wrong there. Looking at everything, looking at the data, looking at all the information, I can't really pick a side in this one. I don't really know what to look at here on the sides because Yamamoto struggles on the road. Other guy hasn't pitched at home yet. I am going to take the over 8.5. With both offenses popping off, Yamamoto struggles on the road. Other guy we don't know much about. We'll take the over 8.5. Try to get a better number to 130, obviously. And Yeah, just those, and we'll move on to the next game. Next game, we got Cubs and the Reds. We got Steele with a 4.10 and Lodolo with a 3.11. Betting, slight favorite Reds, 8.5 total, juice to the over. Looking at the data, 60.94 Nerfy, pass. Offenses popping off. 6 runs for Chicago, 8 runs for Cincy. That's 5th and 2nd in the last 3 games. 219 for the Cubs, 18th. Cincy, 324 average as a team for 3rd. Chicago strikes out a good bit, 11 for 29th. Reds not so much at 7. Looking at the pitching, we see that the last time these two pitchers pitched was against each other. Steele faced Cincy, 7 hits, 5 runs, only 1 earned, but still only 5 Ks. Not the best line. And what happens when the batter faces the pitcher the second time around? The batter gets the advantage in this one, and they just faced each other 5 days ago. So same for Lodolo. He only had 3 strikeouts, 7 hits, 2 runs. So I was going to lean Lodolo strikeouts just to take that because of how bad Chicago's doing. But the fact they just faced each other, I got to go with the hitters in this one. I got to go back over here and see that the total is 8.5. And both offenses are 5th and 2nd in the majors in the last 3 games. So we have to take the over 8.5 in this one for sure. Outside of that, side-wise, you could take Cincinnati. I mean, nothing really stands out. The pitching matchups are pretty close in this one. Looking at 410 and 311. Yeah, Dolo has better numbers slightly, but when both offenses are popping off like this, why even worry about a side? Just take the over and just watch the fireworks. So that's what I'm going to do. Take the over, pass on everything else. Next game. Next up, we got Cleveland and Miami. We got Allen with a 5.83 and Weathers with a 3.41. Betting, slight favorite Cleveland on the road, 7.5 the total with some juice on that over. Data tells us 57.4 Nerfy, pass. Stats, 2.7 runs a game for Miami for 23rd. Cleveland, 4.3 for 14, so advantage Cleveland. However, advantage Miami batting average, 248 versus 224. So we have advantages crisscrossing. That's not good. Strikeouts, 7.3 versus 9.7. Miami strikes out. Only problem is, Low down is not a strikeout dude. He just doesn't do it. You can see he got rocked against Colorado. 7.7 3 only get rocked again here. Nothing stands out. I'm not doing a K prop against him. I can't do that. He has great games here, and sometimes he falls apart. We don't know what we're getting with him. Hence the 5.83 ERA and the 1.55 WHIP. Makes sense. Weathers, on the other hand, 3-for-1. Better matchup for Miami on pitching. He got a little rocked against Texas, and outside of that, decent against Arizona, decent against Detroit. But outside of that, nothing stands out for this one. Looking at the data again, you see that Cleveland has the advantage of runs. Miami has a batting average advantage. Miami has a pitching advantage. Stats have the Cleveland advantage. So this one is just screams, we don't know what's going on here. This entire game is going to be a pass. Next game. All right, next up, San Fran and Texas. We got Webb with a 2.95, Lorenzo with a 2.96. Betting, slight favorite, San Fran on the road, 7.5 with a little bit of juice on that over. Looking at the data, 67.5 Nerfy, pass. Looking at the stats, 5.3 for 11th for San Fran, 3.7 for 17th for Texas. Trend line San Fran's favor. Batting average, same story. 267 for San Fran, 245 for Texas. San Fran's trending up. Texas is trending down. Strikeouts, you want this to go down. San Fran is 6th for 7th and 8.3 for Texas for 17th. So we got one team is trending upward offensively and one team is trending downward offensively. And in baseball, trends matter. Looking at pitching, see if that helps us tell a better story. Webb has 2.95 with a 1.25 whip. He got a little roughed up against the Yankees. The Yankees have the power. They're one of the top offenses, we know. Outside of that, decent against the Mets, decent against Pittsburgh, decent against Dodgers. The Dodgers he did decently, and decent against the Reds, who have been crushing it here as of late. Lorenzen, on the other hand, decent against Miami, decent against Minnesota, who we know is struggling. They have been the bottom 3 of batting average in the past month, it feels like. LA, couple runs, did get roughed up by Oakland, which it's not Oakland of 2023, so it's not bad. Oakland is decent. So outside of that, I think this one, based on the stats in the recent games and all who they played and whatnot, I would give Webb the advantage in this one. On the data side, we see that San Fran has the trend line up, while Texas has the trend line down. And so for this one, I'm going to take San Fran money line on the road. We're not going to look at a K prop because neither team, as you can see, is anywhere close to striking out that much. We're not going to take a total because both teams are right in the middle, but I am going to take San Francisco on the money line and move on to the next game. All right, next up, we got Boston and Chicago. Sox versus Sox. We got Criswell with a 3.92 and Crochet with a 3.49. Betting markets have the White Sox as a favorite in this one for some reason. I think they're on a 14-game losing streak, but yet they're favored here. Interesting. Over under 7.5 with some juice on that under. Let's look at the data in this one and have a chuckle. Nerfy is 59.8. We don't care about that. Pass. But Boston is number one offensively at 8.7 runs a game for first in the majors in the last 3 games. They're batting 362 as a team. That's first in the majors in the last 3 games. Hell, they're 329 the past week. It was just still first in the majors. Meanwhile, Chicago is 4.7 runs per 13th, and they're batting 250 for 10th. The offense ain't too bad in Chicago, but Boston is absolutely blazing hot right now. Strikeouts, 9, 10.7, both in the bottom 8, whatever. We have Boston, who is crushing baseballs right now. We have Chicago, who's on, I believe, a 14-game losing streak. I don't think they've won, no, because I thought they might get a couple over the Cubs. Didn't happen, and the Red Sox annihilated them yesterday. So, but yet, we have them as a dog. Things that make you go, why? Let's look at the pitching matchups, see if anything stands out here. Griswold's pitching. Last game, Detroit, 5 innings. Did pretty decent. Baltimore roughed him up pretty hard. He did go 7 to Baltimore, but outside that, he did decent against Tampa, 2-3, and then Washington 2. So nothing really stands out here. Washington's bats are not better than any team on this list he's faced. This is going to be the easiest offense he should face. However, Crochet is balling out. I'll tell you that. He's 1 earned run, 2 earned runs, 11 Ks, 11 Ks, 0. Dude's a beast. He's just on a poor team that can't help him out. So I can see why they're favored, but they're on a 14-game losing streak. He's pitched a couple of these games, and they have still lost. So, that being said, we are statistics based around here. This is what we do. We look at data. We see numbers. We take numbers. We're taking Boston on the money line. Now, if you want to be crazy and take the run line too, -1.5 plus 160, by all means, because I probably will sprinkle a little bit on it myself, because why not? I like Crochet. Dude's a beast. But I like money more. I like numbers. We're taking Boston money line. We're not going to take a total. We're not even going to look at strikeouts in this one because this is too many weird things going on in this one. Just take Boston and move on to the next game. Next up, we got Seattle and Kansas City. We got Miller with a 3.18 and Lynch with a 1.5 over 12 innings. Looking at the odds, 120 for Seattle, 8.5 juice on that over. Data time, 48.2, Nerfy, pass. Seattle, 2.7 runs for 23rd best. Kansas City, 4.3 for 14th best. Advantage KC. 189 batting average for Seattle for 24th. Kansas City's batting 273 for 7th. Advantage Kansas City. 8.7 strikeouts versus 8. Not much of a difference on strikeouts. So we got KC with a couple advantages on runs and batting averages. Looking at the pitching matchups over here. Seattle sending out Miller, who last game, only 6 innings of 3 hit, no runs. Before that, got roughed up several times against Oakland, Baltimore, New York, and a little bit on Houston. Great against the Angels. But the Angels are typically in the past month have been in the bottom 10 of batting averages. So that's what you get. On the other side, Lynch is coming out with his 3 whole games pitched. But he did go 5-0, 2-0, and gave up a couple to Minnesota, which is concerning because we see how bad Minnesota's averages have been in the past week. They are terrible. Bottom 2 or 3 on runs and batting average. So that's concerning. However, looking back at the data, we see Kansas City's batting almost 100 points better than Seattle. The picks tell you Seattle's slightly favored though, which is kind of concerning. So it looks like the odds makers are thinking Kansas City won't be able to get it done because Lynch is going to be the reason they don't do it, because the data clearly states that Kansas City is better. So for this one, based on all that information, and we don't know much about Lynch, let's be honest. Only 3 games, 12 total innings is not enough data to really get a feel for how someone's pitching. So for this one, we're going to pass on the money line. We're going to pass on the total. We're going to pass completely on this game and just move on to the next one. Next up, we got Colorado and St. Louis. We got Gomber with a 3.07. Lance Lynn with a 3.23. Heavy favorite is St. Louis at home. 7.5 with a little bit of juice on that over. Data shows us 61.7 Nerfy. That's a pass. Both teams doing 3.7 runs a game in their last three for 17th. Colorado's batting 202, St. Louis 235. That's 22nd and 16th. Colorado is striking out 9 versus 5.3. St. Louis has the advantage in strikeouts. Looking at the pitching matchups, Gomber's going out. Before, he only gave up 3 runs to the Dodgers last game, 2 of which were home runs. Before that, 1-0, 1-0. Gomber's not bad. I said it last time. I say it every time he pitches. He's not a bad pitcher. So, decent pitcher here. And then we got Lance Lynn, who I have dogged this year. He was roughed up against Milwaukee and the Angels, but outside of that, great against Baltimore, great against Cincy, pretty great against Philly. So only problem I see is he just can't get the wins. So and I just don't trust him. He's one of my 3 pitchers I do not trust to back, because if I back him, he's either going to throw a perfect game or he's going to straight up give up 7 runs and 1 out. So we don't know what's going to happen here. So I personally, everyone has their do not bet list. He's on my do not bet list. So how is St. Louis minus 200 in this one? The data shows there's no reason why they should be such a heavy favorite. Are you saying Lance Lynn is that the reason why it's minus 200? Zero shot at that. St. Louis isn't going in a moneyline parlay. St. Louis ain't getting nothing on it. I ain't putting on the Colorado either, even though Gomber I think is pretty good. If you put a gun in my head and say pick one, I'm picking Colorado and Gomber. I will ride that any day. So, but outside of that, these teams are way too close right now. I'm passing on everything in this game. Next game. All right, next up, we got Houston and LA. We got Valdez with a 3.95 against Canning with a 4.69. Odds say Astros heavy favor on the road at 180. 8.5, little bit of juice on that under. Looking at the data, 52.9 pass on a Nerfy. Houston 5.7 runs for 8th. Angels 3 for 22nd. So with big advantage Houston on runs. Batting average 245 versus 188. Again, big advantage Houston. Angels aren't striking out at all. Houston 13 for 7.7. They're both doing pretty decent. The main thing we're looking at in this one is pitching. Valdez, last game pretty decent, before that decent, but look at this game here. 10 hits, 8 earned runs against who? The Angels. And we know when the batters and pitchers face each other the second time, the hitters have the advantage. You don't need more advantage than 10 hits and 8 earned runs. So the fact that 180 for Houston, that's laughable. We can't do that. Also, for Canning, face Houston the same game, and he went 5 innings, 5 hits, 2 earned runs, but gave up 2 home runs himself. So we got 2 pitchers that are giving up bombs. We do have data that shows Angels are trending up. They were terrible, but they're getting better, and we like trends in this. Houston's trending up, LA's trending up. Houston's pitcher gave up 8 earned runs last time they faced each other. Canning gave up two earned runs last time I faced. We have an over under of 8.5. I'm going to take the over in this one. I am not taking a side. If he gave up 8 earned runs last time they played, we don't know what he might give up 5, 4, who knows. But the advantage should go to the hitter, so I'm taking the over 8.5 and moving on to the next game. Next, Arizona, San Diego. BFAT with a 4.32 against King with a 3.82. Betting slight favorite, San Diego at home. Over under 7.5, a little bit of juice on that over. Data 55.8 pass on a Nerfy. Runs 5 for Arizona for 12th in the last 3 games. San Diego 2.3 for 25th. Both teams trending down. Batting average 295 for Arizona for 5th. San Diego 248. They're both stayed the same spot they were last week, so they're staying about even on the trend lines, not with each other. 8.7 strikeouts for Arizona for 20th. San Diego is no longer first in strikeouts. They're second at 5th. They're falling off. So still, they don't strike out much. Looking at the pitching matchups here, BFAT's over here with his 4.32 with a 108. Gave up 4 runs to the Mets. Gave up 4 runs to Texas. 2 to LA. 1-3. 3-3. He hasn't had a game where he doesn't give up runs. So he will give up something, we know. King, on the other hand, good game against KC, good games against Miami and Cincy, but got rocked by Colorado. So King clearly has the pitching advantage in this one, hence why that they are. I can see why they're favored. Looking at the data, though, is he going to get help? Is he going to get any offensive help here? So we don't know. Arizona has the numbers, but they are trending down. And when you trend down, you kind of want to stay away and see what happens, see if they even back out. Same with San Diego, they're trending down. So the fact that we have Advantage pitching for San Diego, advantage Arizona for hitting. This one, I don't want to take a side. Over under wise, with San Diego being so poor, I don't want to take the over in this one. It happened yesterday and the umpire got us, so it happens. Either way, this entire game, I'm just going to pass on this one and move on to the next game. Last game, we got Toronto and Oakland. We got Bassett with a 4.13 and Harris with a 3.14, given only 14 innings pitched. Looking at the odds, we see Blue Jays 145 on the road, 7.5 with some juice on that over. Data 76.2 Nerfy. We have a couple things in play here. We have Toronto Nerfy, who has not hit a run in the first inning in I think 34, 35 games now, or a little days, not games. So over a month since they hit a Nerfy. We took them in the Baltimore when they were at home versus Baltimore, 4 straight games and 4 straight cashes because they just cannot score a run in the first inning. Oakland at home is also a pretty nice cash cow when it comes to Nerfies, 87.5 at home. I'm still waiting for the Baltimore at Oakland series, which will happen soon, and I will be taking Nerfies in every single one of those games. Stats-wise, Toronto, 3.3 runs, Oakland, 1.7, 29th. So both teams bottom 10 when it comes to scoring runs in the last 3 games. Toronto, 218 batting, Oakland, 163. Both teams struggling to hit the ball. Both teams can't really do anything in the first inning, so we will be taking the Nerfy in this one for sure. 5.7 strikeouts for Toronto, 8.3 for Oakland. Oakland's doing better. Look, they're not in the 20s in strikeouts. They're getting better when it comes to not swinging at everything they see. So good job, Oakland. You're doing something good. So this one, we're definitely taking the Nerfy. Looking more at the pitching, we see that Bass is going out for Toronto. 3 earned runs against Pitt. Nothing against the White Sox in both games he had against them. Tampa Bay got 3 runs. So Bassett, pretty decent numbers. Harris, 314, but only 3 games. He gave 4 runs to Texas, 1 earned to Tampa Bay, and nothing to Houston. So he's not a bad pitcher. These are decent numbers. I don't really see anything looking at the data to tell us. Yeah, Toronto has slightly better numbers, and I would say maybe slightly better pitching. Looking at the odds, we do have Toronto minus 145. I would probably take Toronto in a money line parlay just because Oakland is so terrible right now offensively. 163 ain't getting it done. 1.7 runs. What are you going to do with that? You can't do that. So we're going to take Toronto money line. We're taking the Nerfy, and that's it. That's it. 13 of the 14 games broken down. If the odds come out for the Milwaukee-Detroit game, I will put those in a pinned comment. But outside of that, drop a like, subscribe if you haven't. Let me know how you're doing in the comments, and we will see you tomorrow. Peace.